Welcome back to our Simple Healthy Life podcast, where our goal is to have real, insightful conversations on topic that we find interesting. And this one has come up a couple different times for us. I think somebody might have even requested it. But this is a topic that a lot of people seem to run from. And we're going to talk about death today. Dun, dun, dun. So when we got together, we usually don't get together and talk about the podcast before. We kind of just throw a topic out there, and then we both think about it for a little while and just come and kind of riff. And, the podcast came about just because we enjoyed talking to each other on kind of broader topics and then kind of narrowing it down. And for those of you that have been following along through our first 30 some odd episodes, we've kind of evolved into interviewing people we find interesting. But this topic for me is something that has been, I think about, and I know a lot of people don't, but I think about it quite a bit. And so I'll lead with a story that really makes me think that I don't think a lot of people have heard. And it's the story of, they call it the story of Samara. And in Baghdad, there's a merchant or a servant that is out getting his merchants groceries and stuff, and he sees death. And death makes this gesture to him, and quite scared, the servant runs back to the house, and he speaks to the master of the house and says, I just met death. I need to get out of here. I need to get as far away from here as possible. So the guy's like, well, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, of course. Okay, so you can have my fastest horse, and you can take whatever provisions you need, and you can go. So the guy gets on the horse, he takes off, and he rides as far as he can for a town called Samara. And now the merchant he thinks this is awkward, so he goes down to the market, and he's like, man, find death, see what this thing's all about. So he goes and confronts death, and he says, Death, why did you scare away my favorite servant? And Death says, I didn't mean to startle him. I was just shocked to see him, since I have an appointment with him tomorrow in Samara. And I think that's a pretty crazy, cool tale. But it speaks so much to many different aspects of the way that we look at death. So maybe give me a couple of your thoughts on the story, and then we'll kind of branch off on there.
Yeah. I love those little stories. Even like the movies and cartoons when they depict death. I mean, you'd almost imagine, but he's chill. He's super chill all the time. He's never like chasing anyone. He's always super chill. He takes his time and isn't really that scary. He's just like the Grim Reaper kind of depiction. He's not really that scary. I mean, it's unpleasant to look at, but he's always chill. And even in this story, he's like, oh, yeah, that was weird. I was just kind of startled. I'm going to see him tomorrow. It wasn't like, where is he? I'm going to go chase him, right? And I always find that interesting because I think it's like the perfect reflection of death. It's like, when it's your time, it's your time. It's not, nothing's bringing you really closer or further away from it. It's just, it's an interesting topic because we typically avoid that, right? We avoid thinking about it because it's uncomfortable. And avoidance, obviously, we've talked about this before, is that it's not great for us. It's never great for us to avoid a thought or avoid action that we don't necessarily want to do. And, the reflection on death is quite important. I know you've seen it, but maybe everyone doesn't know, but I have this tattoo on my chest that says memento mori, and that in essence, there's a lot of different meanings to that, and we can maybe get into it, but in essence, it means remember you're mortal, right? Just remember that you're going to die. Some spiritual, observations of that or translations would also say, remember that you have died. And so that's kind of an interesting thought too. But yeah, I mean, every morning I see this. I see memento mori it'll be backwards as I look at it in the mirror. But
How old were you when you got this?
This is pretty recent. I think I got it like 2-3 years
The other
back.
day.
Yeah, I got it the other day, so 2-3 years ago.
Was there a specific thing in your mind when you were like, I want a tattoo, I want to maybe, or was it more of a thinking about mortality first? What brought it about?
Yeah, I can't exactly remember where this thought process came from. I don't know if I read it or if I kind of just was meditating on death essentially, or my mortality, but recognizing that death actually gives everything meaning. And by that I mean there'd be no reason to do anything at all if you were never going to die, right? Why do anything? Because you can do it tomorrow. You have an infinite amount of time. So we would naturally, right? If we lived forever, we would naturally put everything off. You know that about you. We know this about ourselves. At least for me, I would certainly always say, well, next week, got plenty of time. Next week, I'll do that. I'll go do the hard thing later when I feel like it, right? And death kind of says, well, it can't always be what you feel like because there's some time limit here. I mean, you don't know exactly when, but it's between now and 60 years likely. So you gotta put some meaning behind everything that you do. There has to be a reason beyond whether you feel like it or not. And so I just thought that was such a comforting thought to me to like view my mortality and view death as this thing that, yeah, I mean, it's super uncomfortable, but it's the only thing that gives meaning to our lives, essentially. It's the only thing that maybe doesn't give meaning, but it forces meaning upon us in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that's true. It forces meaning upon us. And for some reason, we love to be told stories about it. Mm-hmm. Right? We love to watch movies about it, and we love to write about it and hear about it. But when we start to embody it, it brings on fear, right? Anxiety, unknown. Mm-hmm. Or I was asking people these questions recently, like, which one's scarier to you, like your death or the death of the loved ones? And just today, the answer I got was the loved ones for sure, because you have to carry on. Mm-hmm. When you die, it's good luck. I hope that's how it goes. And I think that not only is this. Not only do we know this is true because we talk to people, but like, how many people have a will? How many people have said, okay, I'll get one of those when I'm older, right? When I'm close to death, I will decide what I'm going to do with my assets. Like, what a weird thing, right? It's almost like by preparing yourself for it, you're bringing it closer to you. Like, when the reality is, why not just prepare yourself for it, right? You're gonna end up in Samara someday, right? It's gonna happen. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I'd love to talk a little bit about maybe just some people other than ourselves that have talked about death. One that comes up to me specifically is Marcus Aurelius. Right? We did a podcast on his meditations, and now remember, when he's writing this, he's the most powerful person in the world. I mean, he's the Roman emperor. He's untouchable by all stretches of imagination. And if there was anybody even close to his level of power, they didn't know about him. Right? Maybe he was in China or another part of the world. And what his reflections on death are to say that death is part of nature, and nature is never good or bad. Nature is all there is. Nature is natural. So to feel sad or scared or anxious around this is truly to put your own internal worry around it, and you shouldn't do that because you're going against nature. Make sense? Did I articulate that properly?
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And I think that's what's so uncomfortable to people, that it is so natural, that it is like you're gonna experience that. There's no way around it. I mean, I don't know, maybe. They saw it the other day. I think actually we were talking about this too, that they're thinking about like you'll be able to upload your consciousness, and which was once they made movies about it like 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, and maybe now, maybe longer. But but yeah, now it's like becoming an actual reality, which is like so crazy to think about.
I heard this, and I remember someone stated, matter of fact, that the only reason we couldn't do it was because we didn't have the computing power yet. And then my brain just was like, wait a minute, like, hold on a second.
Right.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what they're saying is there's a lot of people out there that are saying this. Another interesting aspect of death is actually, are you familiar with this guy, Ray Kurzweil?
I don't think so.
I think I might be messing up his name, but he's a futurist. Okay, did you know you could be a futurist? In the 70s, this guy essentially, he kind of predicted. Actually, I'll back up. He created speech to text. All right, so that's one of his future things that he did. So, like, I mean, we take it for granted, right? That you can hear the word and that the word is now appearing on the screen. Dude created it, like, out of thin air, okay? He's also done some really cool stuff. He was the first guy to pass the Turing test, right? Which is the Turing test for people that don't know that. I say it like everybody knows what the Turing test is. I just learned about it. Is talking to a computer and having the computer speak back to you well enough that you can't tell if it's a human or not. Okay.
So he had something that passed that? I thought they didn't. I thought that was the whole point of the... Did he develop the test or...
No, he passed it.
He passed it himself?
No. his computer that he uploaded all of his father's information to. So his father was a major figure in music, specifically written music, classical music. So he uploaded not only all of his father's music, but also all of his father's feelings on music, beliefs on music, and then created a robot-ish to talk to. And this particular robot responds and speaks as his father and is actually responding well enough where if you were to just like have it on the other side of the glass and was asking questions, you know, who's the best composer of all time, right? It wouldn't just be like, well, clearly it's Beethoven. It would be like, well, it's Beethoven because of the way that he was able to articulate and move through music and, you know, whatever the answer is. So anyways, that's Ray Kurzweil, right? So the dude is, I don't know, light years ahead of other people. But what he's saying, to bring this full circle on death, is there's a number out there now. For every year that we live, life expectancy is going up so much faster that we're actually only living about 8 months. Okay, so like if life expectancy was 65, I'm going to keep the number super easy because I'm super bad at math. If life expectancy was 60, right, and I'm 40, which I'm not, then that's 20 years. But by the time I get to 60, life expectancy is supposed to be 70. So over that 20 years, I've really only lived 16. Does that make sense? I've only aged 16 years closer to death.
So like the aging is slowing down essentially.
Or our life expectancy is going up so quickly that we're actually postponing death. Following me?
Yeah. Is it true that life expectancy is increasing though?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ray Kurtz, this is the
Ray,
dude.
Ray says
right?
so.
Ray says so. Ray expects to be immortal, right? That's what he's saying, is essentially that by the time we get to a certain point, and actually to bring it full circle around what you just said, we'll be able to upload our consciousness. Like he is expecting that by the time he gets to the point where his body's deteriorated enough, we can do whatever things we need to do, right? And if you've seen some of the crazy stuff that's happening, right? The robots being hung on hooks and like the stuff that's we're just starting to see now. Like, I mean, heck, maybe we went the wrong. Maybe death is not coming for all of us.
MJ's referencing there's some pictures going around of like humanoid-looking AIs, like kind of like looking like they're like on a butcher's hook almost. It looks like it's crazy. It's wild. Check it out. But yeah, no, that is super interesting. Yeah, I mean, I saw something the other day that was, you know, the AI like basically interpreting your thoughts, interpreting like your specific, I don't know if it's like the movements or the kind of like the brainwave patterns, whatever. It's putting that into speech, and it's like 80% accurate or something, and that's wild. I mean, how much closer does it need to be be conscious at that point, or to be your consciousness, which, you know, I suppose is like heavily up for debate if it's you or not. But yeah, the point being is that, hey, maybe a lot of these things are pursued as a fact that people are so afraid of death, so afraid of what happens, and the unknowing is really, really uncomfortable, and that's why people don't think about it a lot. But it's actually kind of a newer thing to not think about it. If you look back at like works of art and like the Renaissance, I mean, there's always the skull. You could see this, so the skull, like many Renaissance paintings, and even like there are stories of like, you know, these like artists and like the medieval era and the Renaissance area, like they have skulls on their desks to just remind them, like, hey, you know, like, you don't have much time, so whatever you want to do, you got to do it. You got to get on that. And I find that particularly compelling. I know that you are kind of like faced a little bit with that question of like, what does death mean, and how it's important to, you know, tell people, like, share what you feel towards people, because, you know, you don't have much time to do these things. You don't have much time to tell people that you love them, or that they've impacted you, or whatever it might be. And for all intents and purposes, within 2 generations, you're going to be forgotten, right? And you know, I don't know anything about my great-grandparents, right? I was maybe impacted by them, sure, you know, how they raised their, you know, my grandparents, and how my grandparents raised, you know, my parents, et cetera, like their impact has certainly come across the generations, but everything about who they were is unknown to me, which is an interesting thought.
Yeah. Well, you said a couple things there. One of the things that I told you, I do think about this a lot, and I think about this concept of like standing in the line for your loved one, right? And they're in the casket, closed or open, and you're standing there and you're thinking to yourself, like, I wish I told them. I wish I had more time. I would just tell them. I wish I could. I wish they weren't gone. I would just tell them. And I've taken it upon myself to tell people. My mom, very much specifically, like, and you know, is it gonna make me feel better when she passes that I did? I don't know. Do I know now that I sit here and effectively tell you for sure that my mom knows how grateful I am for her, and how much I love her, and how much that, you know, she made me into who I am? Yes, no doubt. Because I made her repeat it. I'm like, you hear me, Mom? Are you sure? Are you really hearing me? Because I need to know, right? Because I don't want to be standing over your casket saying, oh, man, I wish I could have told you.
Right.
And now, am I perfect? Are there people out there that I could call up right now and be like, hey, I just need you to know this? But why can't we normalize that, right? What's so hard about normalizing that? Because the alternative is just miserable, right? It brings death to be sad. It brings death to be final. It brings death to be regret and remorse, and I wish I had. And maybe instead of, you know, taking this hard step, like telling the government I'm going to die and getting a will and doing all this stuff, right? Maybe just tell the people you love. Say, hey, listen, I'm going to end up in Samara someday. And before I get there, I want you to know. And I think when you do that, that's how you impact. Right? That's how you impact people. And that's definitely going to make the people around you know how you feel.
Right.
And I think that for me brings the scariness of death down a little bit. Well, that and the fact that my own personal belief is that we are infinite.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I knew we were going to talk about death today, and a friend of mine had this made for me. This is it's called a mala, and it's essentially, at least partially, from the Buddhist religion, of which I'm not. I don't consider myself to be any religion, but their philosophy is the wheel of samsara, not samara, which is two different things. Are you familiar with the wheel of samsara a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. We kind of talked briefly on that. As far as I understand, in Buddhism, you can basically be, reincarnation is a thing, but you can reincarnate into different types of beings. So you don't just reincarnate into humans, but you can also reincarnate into animals. You can reincarnate into plants and other kind of wildlife. I think you can and then you can even reincarnate into like deities and half deities or demigods or something, depending on how well of a life you lived, essentially, like how much karma you accrued. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. When I think about that, as soon as you say like, oh, you can reincarnate to a god, people be like, well, why didn't I do that? I mean, like, okay, I choose that one. Thank you. Let's do that, right? But this concept of being infinite, right? This wheel, and there is a way out, and it's to achieve enlightenment, according to the Buddhists, right? And enlightenment is essentially an understanding of what's going on, right? And the way the Buddhists talk about it is when you're this deity or this god, and remember, you wouldn't even want that. That was always my problem with heaven, right? From the Christian religion, and I was brought up Protestant and trying to find my way and make my way through the church. And I will say, I got a lot of great lessons from being brought up that way. Did I agree with everything that they said? No. Did I agree with a lot of the stuff and find that to be very valuable? Absolutely. Same thing with this religion. But if you're truly infinite and you're living in this God or you're living in this heaven, right? Forever seems like eventually you'd be like, oh,
Kind of boring.
kind of boring. Like, I don't know,
Everything's perfect.
Want to cause some trouble? Like, I don't know, start dropping, doing stuff that maybe isn't the best. And essentially, the Buddhists say is, yeah, that's exactly what happens. You'll end up fighting with other gods, right? And then you'll choose or being reincarnated as a lower class or lower life form, and then you'll work your way all the way through, including going through these hells, right? And you'll work your way all the way through. And maybe it's just very self-serving of us, but the Buddhists say, like, as this human character, you get the mixture of suffering and bliss enough so that you have the opportunity to achieve enlightenment. Right? Because what they're saying, the Buddhists are very clear when they say that life in this form is suffering. And something that always stuck with me was, you live in a body that craves only good feeling with a mind that is capable of lying to you. Right? And I would encourage you to refute those two facts for yourself. Right?
Right. Yeah, you've said that to me before, and I do think about that because it is so true. Your mind tells you whatever it wants, really, and you can cultivate like a healthier landscape there, but that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of paying attention. It takes a lot of work, and yeah, the body craving. I mean, you can't really stop that. Yeah, your body is really geared, neurochemically, physiologically geared towards pleasure, right? And just so happens that the most pleasurable things all the time are not the best for us all the time. And so it's quite the challenge. The cool thing about the Buddhists is that they say that to be human is actually one of the best moments to achieve enlightenment, is one of the best beings, I suppose, to be able to achieve enlightenment because there is a lot of suffering as a human. There's this it's kind of middle of the road. Like, you're not a god where like everything is perfect, and you're not like in their 16 hells, which are all terrible, right? Which they actually do. 16 levels of hell, 8 hell fire hells, and 8 cold hells. It's really fascinating.
That's at least one reason why I'm not Buddhist.
It's like, I choose not to go through all these hells. Thank you very much. But yeah, they say that being human provides the best opportunity for enlightenment, where you. And I guess that's on the mind, the level of the mind, which is kind of interesting. I would think that like being a plant is pretty close to being enlightened. I don't know. Do you have thoughts?
Well, you can escape the wheel.
Right.
And escaping I don't even know what that means. I'm not sure what they even mean by escaping the wheel, but becoming aware or understanding of the wheel allows you to escape the wheel, right? Like, but so that's another take on death. You know, and we touched a little bit on the Christian religion, right? Like the one that challenges me, and it always did as a kid, and still to this day, when they say like, and as I grew and understand, and I'm not offending anybody, and if I am, my intention is not to offend anybody here. But like, okay, so if you're gonna take the Lord Jesus Christ as your Savior and invite Him into your heart, and that's how you can get to heaven, right? And for me, there's a million metaphors we could use there, but those are the words that were given to me as a younger person. Like, what about all the people that didn't know?
Mm-hmm.
That one struggled me. Like, no one heard. What if they didn't tell me?
Right.
Like, then I end up in hell, or and for all eternity. And I have a problem with that because it's a very long time. But like, I struggled with that from the very beginning, even as a younger person. Like, so do we just spread the word, or how's this go exactly? And I really struggled with that.
Right.
And as I grew and started to take my own religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs and kind of figure out what I believe and what I don't believe, I'm grateful I got the opportunity to hear about it, to learn about it. But I just can't get behind it in as far as like, what about all those other people? I feel terrible. I'm feeling this terrible for these, large parts in the population that just didn't know.
Right. They just didn't even have the opportunity to know. Yeah, I think this is like some of the problem with, I guess, organized religion, and I think it's an objective problem. But I mean, I'd be open to being swayed. But I think it's an objective problem that you have these stories that need to be presented in such a way so that people have some essence of understanding, but I don't know. They all say kind of the same thing to me, like Buddha. The 16 hells of Buddhist religion is basically like be a good person, and here are some of the ways that you can accrue karma and whatnot, and here is what might be important on the mental front, and same thing with like Christianity is well don't do these things, that are for the most part give or take a few of them. Here are these things that actually will be self-degrading to you, and if you do those things over and over and over, and you don't process them, you don't repent or I guess resolve that in some sense, then you're going to hell, right? And what does that mean? Well, maybe it means that your life is just kind of stink. You're going to be miserable. Right, maybe that's what that means, and maybe heaven is like the opposite of that. It's like you're, in this lifetime, you do some good things, you help other people, and you care about yourself and others and the people around you. Maybe life will be pretty good. And so, yeah, I kind of have a hard time with the taking the story at face value. It's like, okay, yeah, you didn't believe in me, and now you're going to burn for eternity. It's like, that doesn't seem very nice.
I know. It seems kind of wrong.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
It's like very black or white. Like,
Right.
There's got to be a middle there.
Right.
I mean, we did not discuss talking about specific reincarnation or any of that stuff, but one of the things that fascinates me are these people that are out there that have very specific reincarnation stories. Are you familiar with any of them, or have any of them come across your Twitter feed?
Yeah.
We still call it Twitter.
Actually, Twitter, X Twitter. Yeah, everyone calls it Twitter, I think. But yeah, no, definitely. And we do these like little presentations at home, just like little fun presentations on a regular basis. And the last one was reincarnation, and so I got schooled on reincarnation.
Really?
Essentially, yeah. So
Go on.
there's a couple like cool stories there. Yeah, there's been documented cases of folks, younger folks, basically recounting these really elaborate and highly accurate stories about quote unquote past lives. And so, again, whether or not that's entirely true, these stories, maybe they were fabricated in some like very elaborate way, but the level of detail that some of these kids are able to like produce on a whim and also kind of like fact checked in some way is really remarkable. And so there's the one about the girl in India, right, who like
Shanti Devi.
Is that her name?
Yeah.
She kind of like she said that she had a husband who also lived in India, and then they kind of like met up, and then she basically was talking to him and like basically was fact checked pretty extensively and did almost close to perfect with all these fact checks, and then it's just kind of like, well,
so much so that Gandhi came to visit her.
Right.
Like not only did the authorities got involved. And they were like, well, we'll prove to you that this girl's full of crap. And then the authorities came and they were like, oh, no, what do we do now? So they basically told Gandhi. And then Gandhi was like, all right, well, I need to go figure this out, right? Which is crazy, right? Yeah. That's a very short story, but it's a very longer story. But interestingly enough, we were out to sushi the other night, remember? And we were talking a little bit about this, and then we were talking about this. And my friend, Erin, my college roommate's wife was like, oh yeah, no, makes total sense to me. I was like, okay, you took that all at face value. She's like, no, when I was in school over here in Massachusetts, in like the 3rd or 4th grade, one of the girls was from Hingham, and her mom came in. When she was a younger girl, so they would drive by this house, and the girl would say, oh mom, remember that was our house. And she was like, no honey, we never lived there. And she was like, no, don't you remember? Like, that was my bedroom up in there in that window. She was like, no, honey, like that's just not accurate. We never lived there. And she's like, no, I think, don't you remember? Didn't remember when it burnt down? My bed was stuck in the door. And the mom was like, okay, now you're getting weird. Like, stop! Don't tell anybody that, right? Like, stop it. And long story short, they were able to go to the library and look up the house, and that house had burnt down. Wow. Some 20, 30, 40 years prior, and a little girl had died in that bedroom.
Wow.
And Erin talks about it matter-of-factly. Like, they brought the mom and the daughter in, and they just talked about it openly. They were like, this is just the story that we told. This is just what happened.
Yeah.
And, that's not India in the 1940s. That's like early 2000s Hingham, Massachusetts.
Right.
And yeah, so go ahead and rationalize that for you.
Yeah, no, that's remarkable. And what do you do with those stories, right? Maybe that's why like people, they're not really like talked about too much. Like, what do you do? Like, wow, that was pretty accurate. Like, cool. And then the news cycle changes, and then we just kind of move on. But it doesn't negate the fact that the stories are out there, and whether or not everyone, you could be a critic of everything, and people are. Some people really are a critic of literally everything that comes their way. But the proof is in the pudding. I don't know. There's some weird things happening. We've talked to plenty of odd, weird things that happen across our reality. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's how things work.
I mean, heck, anything's possible. We landed on the moon in the 1970s.
Can't make
I
a phone.
just ruined everything.
Yeah, can't make a phone call in 2025 that connects, but we can live stream to the moon.
Calling the moon in 1969. But I'm not letting this one go. So, what's so strange to me is that when these stories come about, right? Okay, reincarnation or whatever the case may be, past lives, right? You meet these people that are mediums and past life regressions, and I've done one. Really was impactful for me. All of these things, wouldn't we choose to believe them to make death less scary? Or does all of that just say, nothing brings me back? Like me, Mike James, I'm dying. Someday I'm dead. Gonna happen. Gonna be in Samara. That's going to be there. I could run from it as long as I want to, but wherever I'm supposed to end up, it's going to happen. The inevitability of it. But maybe not my soul, maybe not my consciousness, maybe not maybe not the thing. And hearing about these stories of past life regressions or reincarnation or the whole religion of people that believe that you're going to be reincarnated, why doesn't it make me feel better?
Well, now you're spurring up all the kinds of thoughts, right? Because and this is kind of the thing that I think people do struggle with, is that you yourself, as you know it right now, whatever your identity is gone, right? Even if you upload your consciousness to some degree, we get there, like you yourself, every part of your identity, or most parts of it at least, are gone, and that's a scary thought. But I mean, isn't that always changing, right? You 20 years ago, 2 decades ago is not you today, right? Even me 2 decades ago is so far away from who I am today, and yet that seems okay. But the idea of like, well, I disappear in an instant, I guess maybe it's maybe the pace of change, and when it comes to death, that's really, really difficult for people to kind of grasp, and rightfully so.
Sure. Yeah. There's the finality or the flick of the switch, right?
Yeah.
The lights go out.
Right.
And then you have the people that are like, well, I guess you just go back wherever you were before you were born. Right? Try wrapping your head around that.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute.
I've tried. That's a trippy thought.
Yeah. So just so I'm clear, I'm going to take this really weird. Do I need someone to have sex for me to come back? Like, how does this work? Like, do I need, like, crap. You know the stuff that's going to be going through my head when I'm on my deathbed.
Yeah,
It's going to be weird. I'm going to be like, what did he just say? Are you scared? No, I'm just trying to figure out, like, how this is going to work.
Who needs to get together for this to happen again?
I'm hearing birth rates are dropping. Could you guys speed this up? I'm trying to come back sometime soon.
I think my karma's pretty good. I'm sure I'm coming back as a human, or but maybe a rock. Yeah, I think it's I guess I'll be transparent here, though it's not like too much of I'm not divulging too much. I'm not entirely fearful of death, maybe because partly due in part to my reflection on death. I'm very fearful of not having a good, what I would perceive as good, and I know that's subjective, but in the way that I perceive good, I fear that I won't have had the impact that I would have liked to. I wouldn't have done enough good in this world, and that's really, really terrifying to me. That's the most terrifying thing. Like if death, for me is next week or something, I don't know if I've done enough. I don't know if I've done enough to be proud of, and that's the scariest thought. It's not necessarily the fact that like the lights turn off. Like I don't really have any problem with that, and I'm I'll be really upset. I won't be upset, but I would be really upset about the people left behind for sure, because I still think that part of my role here is like protecting and guiding in some sense. Like I think that's kind of natural for people, maybe guys in particular, but and fearing not having done enough, not having enough impact, right? And it's like that thought of, I don't know my great-grandparents, but I hope that they've impacted me in a way that they would have felt good about, or impacted their surroundings in a way that they would have felt good about, because that's all you have. All you have is the impact that you left on this world. And to be fair, it's a lot. Even if it's a small little bit, I mean, that's still a lot. The butterfly effect is a very real thing and whatnot. But, I just want to have enough of an impact where I don't need my name remembered, but I want enough love out there where, hey, it's made a difference.
Yeah. Well, that's a very real thing to be afraid of. And, we talk a lot about action. So as much as you maybe don't want to hear this, I'm going to ask you the question. What action can you take today?
To have the impact?
To start to ensure even just to start to ensure that you're on a path where your impact will, when you're laying on your deathbed, you can say, you know, I took this action, and here I am.
Mm. Well, isn't that the scariest thought of all? I mean, because you don't actually know if the impacts that you're having are, you know, are actually beneficial, right? You know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and so, you know, I can have all the all the best intentions, but what is it that's actually going to serve people around me well, right? Who knows? Maybe me serving myself, maybe me being the most selfless individual is like packing up my bags and taking a taking a trip, right? Not don't worry, I'm not going to do that, but maybe that would be, you know, if you were to like have the most, you know, clarity in hindsight or something like that, you know, maybe that would be the case. It's like, Ryan, just stop doing your podcast. Stop talking.
Well, here, I'll do it for you then. Ryan, you have made an impact in my life, and I am grateful. And there are a few different ways where you've impacted me in a positive way. And so just so we don't get all lovey-dovey on air, I will explain them to you after the show. But you know, there you go. There's you're on your path, and I'm very confident that I can speak for at least a few other people that I know that you've impacted positively, and I'd be willing to bet you dollars to donuts that there are. I love that term. That there are people. There are people on that have listened to our podcast that you've impacted in a positive way, and the fact that you truly care enough to be the owner of Nurtured Nutrition and spend your time as a therapist, I'm willing to bet you not only are there people out there that are willing to write that down, but also spend time talking about you in rooms you've never even been in, about how you've impacted them in a positive way. So keep it up. Just keep going that direction, and I think you'll feel good about it by the time you get there.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. Keep it up, buddy.
Keep it up. Pat on the back. Let's go. And we're all gonna die.
What do you Yeah, and yeah, but I appreciate that, and but I guess some of those thought processes too could kind of lead someone down this kind of like nihilistic path where it's like, okay, well, nothing matters, right? And I really hate that thought. Like, and I really dislike that philosophy, because there are some people who live their lives that way, and I don't necessarily think that helps people. And so when people are thinking about death and reflecting, and maybe you talk with, you know, from your own experience here, but how do you avoid the nihilistic view, the nothing matters view?
Yeah, I guess if you choose to live that way, it's going to be really lonely life. You know, and we talk about community all the time, you know, individually and on the podcast, and the truth is, if that's your choice and you want to make that choice, I encourage you to try and see if that's really serving for you. I think you'll find quickly that it's not. I think you'll find quickly that determining what does and doesn't matter is something that will, in essence, give purpose, right? So I've never really thought about that concept of nothing matters. I think I choose more to think about, you know, everything matters, which is probably the wrong way to think about it too.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a choice, right? Like, you either choose nothing, you know, nothing has inherent value, or every little thing does. I don't know if there is a middle ground there. I mean, maybe, and maybe that's the healthy way. You know, it's less black and white. But it seems to me, and maybe this is my experience, because I tend to talk with a lot of people who, you know, are really in poor positions, and for the most part, they really struggle with these views, right? Like, oh, nothing matters. I'm useless. I'm this. I'm that. And I have a hard these are seemingly normal individuals too, a lot of them. I mean, obviously some of them are, really, really struggling, but many of them are very normal individuals. You wouldn't know. You're, the coworker, right? They're struggling with these thoughts and they're just kind of going about their day like on autopilot, still smiling here and there, still cracking jokes, still whatever. Yeah, they have these like really overwhelming thoughts that are, hey, I don't matter and nothing matters and, I don't deserve love and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So why do you think that people have such a hard time assigning meaning to things? Because I guess the common argument could be, well, why do anything if it's going to be forgotten, right? I'm going to be forgotten in 2 generations, if not earlier. Sad thought. Or this book that I write is even if it is super impactful, the chances of it being impactful for more than 2 or 3 generations is very slim, right? And even if it is highly, highly impactful in 2 centuries, who knows what's gonna be made of this life. And so why do you think that people have a hard time saying, well, it's important just because I decide it to be, right? I choose for it to have meaning. I choose to live my life that way. Why is that a hard thought for people, or why would you imagine that to be hard for people?
I don't know. You kind of stumped me. I really don't know. I mean, it certainly comes back to our own mortality, right? To bring it back to full circle, because if maybe it's when we run up against this wall that is our mortality, instead of embracing it and saying, I'm gonna, hard stop, somewhere along the line, hard stop. So until I get to that hard stop, I'm gonna do all the things that I can to make the world a better place. I'm gonna just fixate on that hard stop. And because there's a hard stop, then nothing up until the hard stop matters. I think I choose to be the other way. I choose to say, okay, hard stop's coming. So until I get to that hard stop, I'm going to choose to do all the things I can to make an impact in a positive way. And I think I want to share a quick personal story.
Please.
You've heard it. I'm going to share it real quick. Did a breathwork session. It's called holotropic breathwork for those people out there that are listening that haven't heard about this. It was designed by the same. We'll get into it. I'll just give you the story. Breathing, laying on the floor, breathing, following my breath, breathing pretty hard, listening to some music, going hard. All of a sudden, transformed, completely out of body, and I'm sitting in my own funeral. Sitting in the back of the church that I grew up in, facing the stage, and on the stage was a casket, and in the casket I knew it was me in this vision, dream, out-of-body experience. Around the casket were all these versions of me, some that I had never even met yet. And while everybody was facing forward and I was in the back, they were all facing me, and they were looking at me. It was really wild. And I heard them giving my eulogy. And all I heard was them say, he was someone who knew love and knew how to show love. And all these versions of me were staring at me. And I got the sense that they were proud. And I just started to bawl, started to cry my eyes out. I mean, actually, the real me, the body that was on the ground, was crying hysterically. And I said, I would like to stay here. In my head, I want to stay here. And I realized I couldn't, and I kind of my whole being went above the church, and I looked, and I saw that the parking lot was full. And then I came back to the room that I was actually in, back to my body, back to everything. This was the other day. No, this was about 2.5 years ago. This was it was March of 2023. So it was 2 years ago. So I had that experience, and I don't know where it came from, and I don't know why it happened. I knew why it happened because I was breathing in a certain way, and we can teach you about that. If anybody has questions, please drop a comment. But that's a thing that happened to me. And I will close the podcast by telling you this. Since that day, I have intentionally tried to live up to the words that were being said. And my fear around death has come way, way down. Now, is that the future? Is that the past? Is that something that's going to happen? I don't know. Is it my way of telling myself everything's going to be okay? I don't know. Do I know the voice that was speaking? No. But that's what happened in my own psyche, subconscious, conscious, whatever it was. So that is how I feel about death now. So.
Wow. Yeah. Powerful. I appreciate you sharing. Yeah. I mean, very, very interesting. I think it's weird how those like breath workshops, breath work in general can kind of elicit those, deeper thoughts. And so when you said like, I chose to take those words for what they are, what words specifically, like what's the message that you specifically like took from those words?
I want to live that. I want to live as the person that knows how to show love. And I think that's why I had such a trouble with the nihilist question. I don't want to live that way. I want to live as the person that knows that people, when my casket's closed, when they're walking by, hopefully it's an open casket. Closed caskets sound a little gruesome. I'm not afraid. I'm just saying, hopefully. When they're walking by, right, and they're looking down and they're having their moment with my body, hopefully, I want them to say, the thing about Mike was that he knew how to show love, and he did, and I felt it, and hopefully, the line is long, and the parking lot is full, and I don't really care if there's tears or not. I'd prefer there not to be. I'd prefer there to be a whole bunch of people that are like, yeah, he could do that, and he did, and I felt it, and I think that's what I'm hoping to leave and hoping to send on past the hard stop for me.
All right. What a beautiful message, and something nice to potentially reflect on. What would you want? What would you want that, like a random person giving you usually, what would you want them to think? Right? Oh, wow. He really gave me a lot of money. He helped me buy some shoes,
Right.
or is he was a person who, who inspired me, or he was a person who, showed me that love exists in all forms, or whatever it is. What is actually that message? And maybe that's something, obviously that's going to be deeply personal, but maybe that's something you reflect on. Maybe you write that down. Like, what would I love to hear from a eulogy? And then just write. See what happens. Right. You don't know why you're going to start writing. Like, I don't know what I'm writing right now, and I don't even know what that means. And I guess I would have to, like, those might actually be the words on the page that you're writing before you get a good kind of like something clear to come out. And so don't be afraid to have this kind of like directed thought that, I guess, it's a meditation on a really healthful thought, the healthful thought of death, right? Death isn't a scary thing. It's just a reality, and we tend to avoid it. And so memento mori, right? Whether or not you're the most wealthy man in the country, or you have a great family, or you're homeless, or you have no one, memento mori, right? Or if you have this a great relationship with your physical health and nutritional health, well, memento mori, right? Just always remember that, hey, that's around the corner, and you can avoid it and whatnot, and but I don't know if it's actually going to serve you. And so that's great. I might actually reflect a little bit on that, your thought, your vision later tonight.
Well, we're all going to end up in Samara.
Yep.
With that very stoic, Dude with the Grim Reaper with the sickle.
Yeah.
You know, we should update that, right? Don't you think, as a society?
Yeah.
Come on, no one's got a sickle.
Scythe.
Maybe like
a scythe.
a scythe.
A scythe. Like
Maybe like a laser
cut the
gun. In
grass.
the future. Well, thank you guys for listening again. If you have any topics that you would like to find interesting or people that you find interesting, definitely reach out, drop a line. And we're getting a ton of great feedback from the people that are listening, and it's making it a lot of fun for us to do. Thank you for listening, and you can catch us next Friday.
Thanks.